All right, hello. Let's change some oud strings. All right, so the first thing I do is take off the old strings. You can see they're pretty rusty. They need to be changed. And first thing I do is I change the bass string. The bass string is the easiest one to change. So we'll get started on that. I have two, and this one is the Arabic set. We'll try this one out. This is the first time I'm trying this one on this oud. I've been using the Turkish set, but in Arabic tuning, and this one I really like the sound. I really like the quality of the sound of the strings. The Dario's strings are quite awesome. So the oud is in tune. Got the bass string. Take the bass string off. Alright, that's off. So on the D'Addario string set, we've got one end which is a little bit different. On this end, there it's looser, so you can tie a loop. So you want to put that side on the bridge. And then this other side, which is normal, you want to put it on the peg. And the string is going to be really super long, so you need to trim it. But the first thing I do here is I loop it. Loop it here, goes in on this side, comes out. Bring it all the way back here. Give it a nice loop. And usually you only need one loop for the bass string. Just keep it there. It'll tighten itself and you can adjust it when you start tightening up the string. I'll take the other side and you loop it. First cut off a bit of the extra. You don't need so much. Pliers here. So it's important not to cut off too much, so you kind of measure with your finger where the peg is and then give it about 10 to 15 centimeters of extra length, or maybe less, maybe 8 centimeters. So from the peg, like 10 centimeters or so. That should be enough. Now the reason why I do the bass string first is because it's the easiest string to change and it stays in tune. So that's my trick for getting strings to stabilize faster, is that I use the bass note as a reference to pitch, to tune the rest of my strings. So I keep on doing it throughout the changing process. and that way my strings have time while I'm tuning to adjust to the new pitch, because the bass string is just so easy to keep in tune. So there you go. So the bass one, nice and tight together here, right? You just keep going. Just make sure you have enough friction on the peg. If it needs more friction, then you loosen it and then push in and turn at the same time. Then you want to tune it. So you pluck open C string, and then you find the pitch. That's it. Then you may need to adjust it, loosen it, tighten it. You don't want it to be too tight. You don't want it to be too loose. There, it's in tune. You check the loop on this side. Make sure it's not too wonky. It is a bit too wonky. You want to make sure that it's looking okay. It's all set nice. Looks good. Got one loop there. You can leave the end, cut it off later. So now we have the bass string. Make sure it stays in tune. There you go. And then we go ahead and change the rest of the strings. Now, see what's happened here? The bass string is coming quite down the middle. That's not ideal. You want it to be, you want the strings to be like one boom, 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 boom. You don't want them to be crossing each other, because it causes, may cause problems. Just with tuning might not be so easy. So you want to reset where it's landing there. So loosen it up, and then just move the string more to the edge a little bit, and then now it's more to the edge. Now you have space for the other strings. You don't want them to be crossing. It's just ugly and doesn't look good. Tune it up again. Good. Alright, now for the rest. Okay, so what I like to do is I keep most of the strings on when I'm changing, and but I take some of them off because they get in the way. So what I'll do is probably take off the middle ones, the D, just so that they're out of the way. Just loosen, take it off. There you go. Take this one off. And that way you have more room to see. I'm going to change the high strings first. You have more room there. Get rid of these on this side. Wrap up your old strings, put them away, get rid of them. Now, as I'm tuning, as I'm changing the strings, I'm always going to check the tuning. I always want it to be back up to the normal pitch so that the strings have time to adjust. They'll always be stretching out during this time. Then, now the hardest string to change here is the G string, because it's down here and it's annoying to get into. I'm going to change that one first. Actually, I'm going to change the high strings too. I'm just going to get them here. Sometimes it may be a good idea just to take off all the strings. That way you don't get any of these in the way here. But I don't always do that. So I don't know if I'll be able to answer any questions until after I'm done changing the strings. If you guys have any, put some in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from. I'd be interested to know where you're located. Okay, find the thinnest string. That'll be the first string. I don't often change my oud strings. I change them maybe every 6 months or so. Sometimes longer. It depends. Depends on the weather. The weather here has been moist sometimes, so the strings get a lot more rusty easier. I like a warmer sound, a duller sound too, to lighten up, to warm up the sound of the instrument. So dull strings are not always a bad thing, but you don't want dead strings, that's for sure. And right now my strings are pretty dead, so it's important to change. So tying the loop here, always give yourself some extra length to work with. Loop it a few times. I have another older video where you can see this more closely. Just tighten it a little bit, leave some area length so you can hold on to it at the bridge. Sometimes you'll need to do that for the nylon strings because they slip. So I'm gonna put it on this peg here. So I'm just give it like 10 to 15 centimeters. Sometimes you want a bit extra, sometimes you want a bit less, it depends. Let's see how this goes. Off the extra. And loop. What I like to do is I loop on you get the string in the hole, and then I loop once on the left side of the string I just put in, sticking out on the other side of the hole. Then I bring it back and start the loop on the other side so that it gives it something to catch on and gives it a bit more friction. And then this is the tricky part because you gotta keep it tense. You gotta hold on to it while you're turning and pushing in a little bit, not too much. And you get the string in the position there. And then sometimes you need to wedge something in between here, because sometimes you don't want the string to be touching the wood here. It causes problems. Doesn't let the peg stick in properly. So when the string is digging or touching into that piece of part of the wood here, where my tip of my finger is, then your peg is going to get loose once in a while. So you don't want it to touch there. Sometimes it can work to your favor. It can create pressure, but sometimes it can just knock out it can push out the peg too. So best not to touch it very much. So I got the string in there now, and it looks like it's the right length. There's not a lot of loops here. It's okay. Now use the bass string to tune it up. Always check here to make sure that it's not loose. It's staying tight. And then when you're tying it up, you want to sometimes you'll need to pull it a bit. And then pull it this way and tighten a little bit there. So as I'm turning it up, you see there's more loops happening now. So you want to you sometimes need to reposition where the loops are sitting. It's hard to see, but so I sometimes loosen up and then pull the string more into the center and then keep turning. You wanna make sure the oud is sitting. You're just putting pressure here and so what I do too is sometimes I turn it more so that it's a higher pitch, so that it's going to keep getting loose and it's going to keep adjusting its tension. So tuning it higher makes it come down to pitch and helps stretch it out a bit. But the nylons take a bit of time. So we're going to keep it at that. It'll get flat again, but keep going. Where's my other one? Here it is. So I'll do this one fast because I've already explained that part. So this is a 58.5 centimeter from bridge to nut oud, and this is the Arabic D'Addario set. I'm trying this out for the first time because I use Arabic tuning on this set. I've never tried it. I don't know how it's going to work out with this scale length because it's shorter than a typical Arabic oud, so we'll see. Sometimes you just have to experiment and find out what works. But I love the D'Addario oud strings. The sound of the nylon strings is just great. They sound really buttery on this oud anyway. On my other ouds I use different strings. I've been using Aquila strings for a long time. But I don't like the sound of this oud. So I'm using D'Addario. I really like how they sound on this one. Now I've got the other string in there now, and now I'm just going to tune up the one I put in there. Keep tuning it up as you're changing the strings because it'll help settle the strings faster. And you always have the bass string as a nice reference. Good enough for now. Go to the next string. So we've got G happening here now. This one I'll try to do pretty quick. Now, the problem I had with the Turkish version of the Dario strings for Arabic tuning on this oud was the treble strings were a little bit too light gauge for. They're fine. They do the job, but they need to be tighter ideally. So this Arabic set they're thicker, but I don't know about the bass strings. We'll see how they respond and if they're how their tension works out. Sometimes you'll find. Sometimes I've wound up a string and then noticed that there's just too much string, extra string, so I have to unwind it and then cut off a little bit because you want to have the ideal amount in there. Now I've got the other string in. I tune up the ones that I had put in there previously. And I overshot, that's fine. It'll flatten again. So this peg of mine, when you turn it, it gets really tight very easily, this one for G. So you gotta be careful not to push it in too much. Find the right balance. You don't need to use any peg goop on pegs. You just have to find the right friction. Next one. Yeah, this set is for a longer oud. But we'll try it and see how it works. What I think is going to happen, I may use some of the bass strings from the Turkish set, mix it up with the trebles on this set, and see how that works. This is a Yildirim Palabiyik oud, and I think he makes most of his ouds 58.5 centimeters from bridge to nut, and with that he puts on higher tension Kirshner strings for Arabic tuning. So I got the other one in, I tune up again. So far, sounding pretty good, I think. We'll see. Alright, now let's do some of the bass strings. Get those out of the way. Now I'm gonna take all of them off, all the old ones, so that I have some space to do this. Some space to work with. Check out the marks in the bridge. It's pretty crazy how deep the grooves are there. The strings. That's always hiding there. Give it another tune. It's always a good time to clean off your fingerboard if you need to. Okay, let's see here. Let's put on the D course. That's the most logical option. It's always best to go from lighter to heavier string. Just the way that, depends on the way that the strings are put in your oud, how they're put in the peg box. Seems that every oud maker does it differently. Let's see here, thickest. There it is. Okay. Get the D course on now. Get all these old strings out of the way. So another trick you can do to, in order to make the process easier of changing your strings, you can always just tune them pretty loosely at first, so that you can make any adjustments you need to do more easily, and never cut your strings too short. But yeah, tuning loose is helpful. If you need to make any adjustments, change the action around the bridge. Show you this turning. I always try to keep it tight so it's not flopping all over the place. Keep holding it, keep it in there. Yeah, nothing to it. Once you get a hang of it anyway. So far, so good. A lot of people always ask me what strings are the best, and I always tell them you just have to experiment and find out what sounds best for your oud. Like, there's not really that many strings that are good or bad. I don't know. I like my Aquila on one of my ouds. I like Labella on another of my ouds, and I really like D'Addario on this oud. So yeah, just gotta try something and find out. All right, so we're almost done. We've got almost all the courses on here. 2 more to go. 2 more courses to go, and then we'll start tuning it up. Something that helps when you're making a loop on the bridge side. Something that helps here is to tighten the loop when you got it in position, when you haven't looped it yet, so that it creates a nice little snug hole. Then put the rest of the string through, and one more time. But usually this side sorts itself out once the string's at tension. Yeah, this is going to be saved. How many notes higher do you mean? If I were you, I wouldn't tune it much higher than it should be, than the standard tuning. And again, it depends on the oud. The bass strings are the easiest to get on here. They just tighten up nice and easy. Super easy. It's the nylons that are the hardest. So I've done another oud video on changing strings, which shows some things a bit more close up. But I do things differently now a little bit. Check that other video I posted a long time ago. Yeah, the key to getting your strings stable quickly is to just keep tuning the thing and stretch them out. I'll show you what I do to stretch them later. Alright, one more course to go. As you can see, it can take up to an hour to change these strings. Maybe a little less if I don't have this mic in the way. So that's another reason not to change it so often. They don't need to be changed so often. You don't need a bright sound all the time like guitar. If you want a more mellow sound, change the strings less frequently. But don't let them die. So definitely, if you're in the States, the best best place to get your ouds is probably oudstrings.com, and check out the FAQ there. Like Brian, who runs the shop. He's nailed everything. Frequently asked questions about strings and all that. He can make you custom sets. That's where I always buy my oud strings, though not this time because of the coronavirus and everything, so I had to find these on Amazon. I always buy my oud strings from Brian at oudstrings.com. He's got pretty much everything, at least the brands that I use. So yeah, if it's the first time you've changed if it's the first time you're changing your oud strings, give yourself a lot of time and just be really patient. Another good idea is to always have a tuner handy, so that when you're tuning the strings, you know you're not overshooting, tuning too high, or completely off the mark. Yes, almost done here. All right. Try not to let your strings cross in the peg box. Try to make sure that they don't interfere much with each other. I don't know, it may not cause any problems. It just might be a hassle if you allow your strings to do that. It's better if it's just all clean and neat. My strings are crossing a little bit, but it's not going to cause too much problem. You can always loosen it up and poke your finger in here and try to fix it up. Okay, so the strings are kind of there. We'll get a Risha and see if we can tune this guy up. I'm just checking some questions here. Where do I live? I live in Japan. I thought about fretless guitar. It's pretty cool. Okay, let's tune this up. The bass string should be, more or less in tune. First sound test. We'll see how this goes. It's going to get on the tune up. questions. Please do ask questions. If I don't get to it in the live stream, then I will respond later in text. So this set says Arabic oud, designed for the unique acoustics of the larger bodied Arabic oud. This string set is optimized for the lower tonal range with larger gauges to accommodate the instrument's darker and deeper tone. Combining the highest quality nylon strings with silver-plated copper wound on nylon, this 11-string set provides a rich, well-balanced, and timeless sound. So I know Brian Prunka from oudstrings.com helped design these with the Dario, and that's why I tried them out, because let's see here. This oud is a Turkish size oud, so maybe it won't be ideal. So far so good. Definitely the trebles are better than the Turkish set. I have the Turkish set here too, just in case I want to mismatch some strings and put different gauges on this. They do feel lighter, I think, than the Turkish set that I had on before. But it could be that my pitch is getting flatter. So we'll see when I have my tuner up and see how it goes. So another way, if you're having problems with the string tension, or sorry, not the string tension, the string settling, stretch them out. So just pull on the string side to side, not away from the face. Just take one string and stretch it out a bit, stretch it in different locations, make sure it's getting tight on this side, it's getting tight on the bridge, just gently. If it gets flatter after you've pulled it, then that's good, because you've got rid of some of the slack. Now sometimes when you're tuning, you'll get clicking when you're tuning up the bass strings, and I think that's caused at the bridge. The nut here. Maybe the strings are not smoothly. There's too much friction and they're clicking. I think it's that, but you can always check with a luthier and see what you can do about the nut. On all my ouds, no matter how much I've paid for the oud, whether they're expensive ouds or cheap ouds, I always get clicking here with the bass strings. So it's not something you can really avoid very easily. So the Arabic bass strings here, it says it's the bass one is 43. That's thicker than the Turkish set, and the Turkish set says 41. Now the F or G string, the fifth course, is 32 on the Arabic set, and 33 on the Turkish set. So I may use the fifth course from the Turkish set for the tuning I use. I usually tune it to F or G, and that would probably work the best for me. But the other strings are sounding good, but I like a loose sound too. So. Now, I'm getting some buzzing here because all these guys. Got to cut these off, get rid of these once you've adjusted everything. So take a look at the how the loops are looking. Make sure that they're all looking okay. Nothing's weird is happening there. They're all, you know, look at this one. This one's sticking out a little bit more than the other one, so you want to just adjust that a little bit, retune up the string. Make sure they're both even. You might get intonation problems if they're not all same. And just yeah, push them down a little bit if they're out of whack. In my other video I showed how you can adjust the action very slightly if you adjust the knot. It's tricky to do and you got to be really careful. But you can adjust the action just a touch. It does help. Sometimes if one of your strings is too buzzy, you can pull up the loop so that it's a bit higher, but it's not going to adjust it too much, but it might help. So yeah, that's about it for changing oud strings. So yeah, I'll try to answer your questions now. Let's see here. So yeah, you don't have to change your oud strings very often. Let's see what other questions we have here. Okay, so oud strings don't break that easily. Especially at the low tensions, you know. But if you tune higher, you're not going to break the string maybe, but you'll break your oud, that's for sure. Let's see here. Now this oud is from Turkey. It's from Izmir, Yildirim Palabiyik, and I like this oud. It's very nice. Let's see here. Yeah, carbon trebles are nice, but I like the sound of nylon better myself, so that's why I'm not using the Kirshner strings. I'm glad you like the oud. It is nice. I have some other ouds that are different. I like just as much. So yeah, you don't need to change your strings that often. I do it every 6 months to 1 year, believe it or not. But every 4 to 6 months is pretty good. I have a Siri oud. What's the highest tuning I can tune it? Don't tune it higher than C, G, D, A, G or F, and C. Yeah, don't tune it too much higher. If you want to tune it higher, you want to have the higher tuning, you got to get the set for fa fa. This is tuning do do, because we have do and then we have do or C C. If you want higher range on your oud, you got to get tuning for the string set for fa fa or F F. So your bass note is F, and then you'll have an extra string F that you can use. I wonder what's the difference between the sound of Arabic, Iraqi, Syrian, and Turkish oud. That's a really good question. That's a whole other video. But there's if you go on Instagram and you search for ouds, you'll find a lot of videos that you can see and hear different styles of ouds played really nicely. So I recommend checking out Instagram if you want to hear the difference between those ouds. All right, so thanks for watching, and we'll do another live another time. Thanks for checking in. We'll talk to you later. Bye.